everyone. Good morning. On this first Sunday of January, it is my honor to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. My name is Reverend Beth Monholland. My pronouns are she, hers, and along with our Associate Minister, Reverend Sally Fritchie, I have the honor of serving as the lead minister for this congregation. We are a people of many ages, histories, genders, bodies, identities, and beliefs. And we are connected by our shared mission to build community, seek inspiration, promote justice, and find peace. As you get comfortable this morning, I'd invite you to look around and notice the color-coded lanyards of your neighbors and be aware and respectful of others' needs and boundaries. It is, as I say, many weeks this time of the year, still endemic times, and many germs are floating around the world. So in whatever ways we can keep each other safe, we welcome those practices. As I said, we are a congregation of all ages, and that means that we embrace the noises and little interruptions and wiggles that kids can bring into a Sunday morning. And today is an all-ages service, which means that our young people will stay with us for the entirety of the service. Although there is nursery available for folks who are 5 and younger, I leave it up to caregivers to decide if they would like to use those services or let their little ones stay with us. Our regular Sunday religious exploration for kids will resume next week with a special programming, which you'll hear more about later in today's service. As always, people of all ages, both little ones and not so little ones, are invited to grab a coloring pack from the box just outside the sanctuary doors if you need to keep your hands busy. And if you need space to stretch or get those wiggles out or just need a break from sitting in here, you are always welcome to go to the fellowship hall where the audio of the service is being streamed. And with all of that said, I will now invite you to take a deep breath and then turn in your seats or stand if you're comfortable doing that and greet your neighbors. You can introduce yourself, simply wave, give someone a hug if you're in that kind of relationship. I'll ring the chimes when it's time for us to come back together. Just so pleasing. Thank you all for those warm and enthusiastic greetings. I hope you keep that energy up at the end of service. We will have our kinship hour, as I like to call it, in Fellowship Hall with coffee and treats as usual. So carry that energy with you throughout the morning. I want to, before we officially light our chalice, also do an acknowledgement. There are some omissions in the order of service because we have to let go of perfectionism, and that's just how it is. But 2 that I want to correct are that I'm very grateful that Michael Dooling is serving as our pianist this morning, and next week, I think I asked him to do it for next week. If not, surprise, Michael, you'll be back next week. And Janet Ravel-Barrett will serve as our song leader for our hymns this morning. So thank you to both of them for leaning in and offering their gifts to us. And now I want to invite Priscilla Cron to come forward to light our chalice, which is one of the symbols of our Unitarian Universalist faith, a symbol of the light that connects us to all other life. I offer you these words from author Elizabeth Gilbert. To condemn oneself as unlovable is to swallow a terrible lie, And to believe that you must earn love through perfectionism or that you must seek love from others in order to become whole turns us all into hungry beggars. I believe that there is an ocean of warm, affectionate, and outrageously unconditional love available to us all, and that it is conveniently accessible from within. I don't believe anyone is excluded from this ocean of love. It is only a question of learning how to hear it, how to feel it, how to trust it. With the lighting of our chalice, may we in this hour hear, feel, and trust the call of love. And now I invite you to please rise in body or spirit for our opening song, which is number 18 in your hardback hymnals. I don't know what color that is. Number 18, What Wondrous Love Is This?
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss and takes away the pain of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down beneath my sorrow's ground, friends to me gathered round. Oh my soul, oh my soul, friends to me gathered round. Oh my soul. To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends, oh, pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end. I will sing, I will sing, with thanks unto the end. I will sing.
Each week when we gather, we practice spiritual generosity by making space for the joys and sorrows we carry with us whenever we gather. And we begin this practice with an embodied ritual of singing a blessing song while we come forward and place stones for sorrows and petals for joy in the bowl of water here on our chalice table. You are also invited to write down a joy or sorrow that you perhaps might like shared aloud later in the service. There are cards for joys and sorrows in your hymns, and our ushers have some as well. And if you prefer electronic means, you can also send a joy and sorrow via email to joysandsorrows@uucuc.org. And of course, if you're joining us online, please feel free to submit those. We'll begin singing our song and trust that in the act of sharing, our burdens are lightened and our joys are uplifted. So I'll invite you to come forward as you feel moved to do so, and we will now begin our blessing song, May the Long Time Sun. Doing a little audible this morning. You're welcome, football fans, for that one and only sports analogy I have for you. I'm going to do the time for all ages just a little later, and we are going to move to our community matters and offering first. There are, as I hope you know, many opportunities to engage with this community and to live into our mission. Our Social Action Council, Congregational Life Council, and of course our Vibrant REE Council offer long-term and short-term opportunities for you as a congregation to engage in a whole variety of activities that connect you to each other, to our mission, and to your own spiritual self. A few things I want to highlight this morning. Very importantly, registration for OWL classes for grades K1 and grades 4-5 is now open, as well as registration for parents as sexuality educators. For those who do not know, OWL stands for Our Whole Lives, and it is a comprehensive sexuality curriculum that is literally life-saving, and it is a joy that this congregation offers that to our young people. The Sunday REE program is also seeking extra volunteers for the next 3 Sundays of January. In response to our young people's interest, the REE classes will be exploring a special animal-themed curriculum for the next few weeks, and so we need volunteers to help with that, with the lessons, with connecting us to the Humane Society and other organizations, and generally finding awesome ways to contribute your skills to our young people. So please read your weekly e-news for more information about these and other community matters and ways that you can get involved. And each Sunday, in recognition of our very real interdependence and reliance on each other, we pass our offering plate and share our offering with an organization doing the work of justice in the world. For our January Sundays, we are sharing our plate with the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. We chose them long before the current situation in Gaza, but I'm grateful given what is happening in the world that they are the recipient of our shared plate this month. We have a brief video that explains the work of this vital organization to provide medical care for children and work that they have been doing for nearly 30 years. So I think, even though I did an audible and moved this out of order, that Alyssa is probably ready to share that video.
Established in 1992, the Palestine Children's Relief Fund has grown into one of the most effective nonprofit, non-political humanitarian relief organizations in the world. Over 2,000 sick and injured children have been sent abroad for free medical care that they cannot get locally. Thousands of doctors and nurses from all over the world have volunteered their time and expertise to provide tens of thousands of sick and injured children free medical care in local hospitals in Palestine, Jordan, and Lebanon's camps. We run humanitarian relief projects and programs to sponsor medical care and surgery for refugee children in Lebanon and Jordan, orphans and amputees in Gaza, and initiatives to address the needs of communities being impacted on the ground throughout the region. We have built the only 2 public pediatric oncology departments in Gaza and the West Bank, and are completing a new pediatric intensive care unit and a pediatric cardiology department in the Palestine Medical Complex in Ramallah. For 9 straight years, PCRF has received the highest 4-star rating from Charity Navigator for keeping our administrative costs low while providing a high level of transparency. Our volunteer chapters and communities all over the world are the strength of our grassroots efforts. We are proud to provide medical and humanitarian relief collectively and individually to Arab children throughout the Levant, regardless of their nationality, politics, or religion. Please join us by visiting www.pcrf.net to support our humanitarian work. As
I said, I'm grateful always for the generosity of this congregation, for the ways in which we seek to share our resources with organizations aligned with our values. And I'm particularly grateful that this month we get to share in some of the relief work that is so vitally needed in Gaza right now. You can give by text or through the online portal on our website. And if you're here in the sanctuary, our baskets will soon be passed. You can also submit a check made out to you, UCUC. And remember, half of what you give will go towards sustaining the work of this church, and the other half will go directly to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. I invite you to give whatever is generous for you, and know that anything you contribute is gratefully received. This is also the time that you can submit your written joys and sorrows if you haven't. And so as the baskets are passed, we will sing Answering the Call of Love, which is number 1014 in the Teal hymnal. It's technically Standing on the Side of Love. The lyrics were updated within the last decade to Answering the Call for Love. So we'll have the lyrics here on the screen. But if you need to follow the music, it's number 1014 in the hymnal. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you again for your generosity and for your generosity of spirit as we make space for our shared joys and sorrows. This is a sorrow submitted anonymously, thinking of our friends who are going through rough times right now with some medical issues. May they feel our love and support. This is from Jody Hanger. For a former coworker, Kiri, who was recently diagnosed with cancer. She is 46 and has 3 kiddos. And a joy from Beth. This year, you'll see me flex my hand and re-extend it. So be it. There she is on the ground. And some joys and sorrows submitted electronically today. This is from Sam Bashir's. Joy for the long life of my father, Daniel, and sorrow that it came to a close on January 4th. This is from Peggy Patton. A concern for that we are thinking of our friend and UU member Brigitte Pica, who took a serious fall a few weeks ago and is recovering at home with the help of therapy. Cards and well wishes would be appreciated. And this is from our Reverend Sally, thinking of all of you as I recover from my very first case of COVID. Grateful to be able to watch the service from home and looking forward to being back on my feet next Sunday. This is from Jerry Carden. I'm thankful for a successful foot surgery on January 2nd, and especially thankful for my husband Tim and his caregiving while I am non-weight bearing. He is a saint. A joy from Katie Goslin. It's a joy to be in person for the first time since having twins. 2 older kids are in the nursery, and the twins will eventually join us too once we exit cold and flu season. I hear that. Thank you, Katie. A joy from Amita and a concern. Joy that my parents, who are 88, spent 2 heartwarming weeks with Marilyn and me at the end of December. Concern for my father, who is in the hospital back home in Connecticut. He has breathing problems caused this week by his heart. Please keep him and my mother in your thoughts. And a concern submitted by Tanya. Our dear member Bobby Ruby's husband suffered a heart attack this week. Please reach out to her if you get the chance as they deal with his recovery. And then a joy from Chris Hanauer for the treasure trove of pictures and documents and tiny antique liquor bottles from my mother's side of the family that we discovered last night. So many things I would ask if I could. For all of these joys and sorrows that we have spoken aloud, for all the ones that we carry on our hearts, I ask that we may remember always that when we are here in this community, we are held in love. And now I need some helpers. And I'm looking at Theo just in case. This is a low stakes helpings. I need a couple of people. Have you ever done this in class, Theo? You just have to hand some things out. I see some other folks coming to help. Here's what's gonna happen. Theo, and whoever else comes up to help me, are gonna pass out a slip of paper to everybody. Would you two like to be my paper passers? So, what's your name? I can't remember. Winona and Theo are going to help us. Winona, would you like to take this half of the room? And Theo, you take this half of the room? And then I need someone else to hand out pencils. And what's your name? Osmi. So Osmi's going to help. Would you like to help Osmi with the pencils? So everybody's going to get a piece of paper. And if you need a writing utensil, Osmi has pencils for you. So while that's happening, I'll explain what's going on. This month of January, the Soul Matters theme is Liberating Love. Love, many religions, including ours, is often proclaimed to be the heart of that religion. But what does that actually mean? Well, as a living tradition, which Unitarian Universalism is, which means that we are always grappling with who we are and what we believe and how we live. I don't like saying what we believe, what we value and how we live those values. We are thinking about that in these times. At our General Assembly, which is the denomination-wide meeting that will happen in June, we, the congregations of Unitarian Universalists, are going to vote on a new way of articulating what our values are. And part of how we are articulating that in this proposed change is to actually center love and to consider the values that help us actively live love in the world. And so liberating love is part of exploring that. What does it mean to be liberated? How is love itself liberating? I like to think that love calls us into action. Well, we talk about love a lot as people. How many of you have ever heard a love song? Raise your hand. Read a love poem, read a romance novel, watched a rom-com, watched an action or adventure film where the dude always gets the girl at the end. We have been writing and thinking and exploring and dancing and making music about love for as long as we as people have been on this planet. But what does it actually mean for us as people of faith? What does it mean for us as spiritual communities to think about love as a liberating force? So here's what I want you to do on your little pieces of paper. We're going to do a little reflection, because while I believe that love calls us to action, the best way to engage in action is with intention. And the best way to get to our intentions is to do some reflection. So I want us to reflect a little bit today, and all the young people are invited to do this as well. So if the little ones didn't get paper, Theo, make sure they have some. Just teasing you. So you have 3 questions on or 3 prompts, I should say. One is, when in your life have you felt lost or heartbroken or sad? Think of just one time, and if you are moved to do so, just hold it in your heart. If you would like to write it on your piece of paper, write a word or a phrase or draw a picture. That helps you think about a time, one specific time that you have been heartbroken and lost. Thank you. Keep on doing it. You can do it too. Now I want you to think about a time that you have felt free. Oh. By the way, if you're joining us online, obviously I can't pass you a little slip of paper through the internet. But please, if you're joining us live, feel free to maybe enter it in the chat or get your own journal and write it down, a time you felt heartbroken. And when you are ready, think about a time that you felt free. What do I mean by free? Well, partly I leave that open to your interpretation, but when I think about times in my life I have felt free, there are times when I have felt the most able to be my whole self. And when you are ready, I invite you to think about a time when you have felt truly loved. invite you to hold on to these for a few more minutes. We'll come back to it. And if you feel the need as we move on, something comes to you and you want to add to it, you want to draw, you want to write a phrase, feel free to do so. I do not get offended if you're doing something else while I'm up here talking. You are humans with bodies and they need to do stuff. I want you to hold on to these for a moment. And I want to offer you, I have so many ideas about what it means to be loving and liberated and to create liberating love. And I could sing you a love song, but which one? I could sing you a love poem, but there's too many. But I do want to offer you this reflection. How many of you have been to a wedding anytime in your life and have heard the bride and groom have chosen a passage, even if they themselves don't consider themselves Christians, from 1 Corinthians that says something like this, yeah? Love is gentle, love is kind. I'm seeing nods of heads. I'm not going to read you all of 1 Corinthians. Just wanted to see if some folks might be familiar with it. 1 Corinthians is, of course, a book in the Christian Bible, the letters of Paul, ostensibly. And in it, though, he is writing to the community, the Christian community in Corinth that is they're not even calling themselves Christians yet, everybody. They are just these people who believe in this message of this prophet named Jesus that says, love God and love your neighbor. And they are trying to figure out how to love their neighbors. And in this letter, they are exhorted to act in community with love. And it has beautiful echoes throughout time for us, no matter what our religious beliefs might be. How do we come together in community? And a Unitarian minister shared this week, she's been thinking about 1 Corinthians and reading bell hooks, All About Love. How many of you are familiar with the writer, philosopher, educator bell hooks? Bell Hooks was an African-American woman. She passed just a few years ago, but she was very influential on me, on some of the people who were my educators. And in her book, All About Love, she talks all about love. The individual, personal love that we might have, the communal love that we have, the ways in which love is both subverted and can be healed. And so Reverend Tess Baumberger, imagined that if Bell Hooks wrote 1 Corinthians based on everything Bell Hooks wrote in All About Love, that it might say something like this. And so this is what I want to share with you. Love is caring, affectionate, and loyal. It recognizes, knows, and respects the other. Love is committed and trusting. Love takes the risk of loving. Love is never hurtful, abusive, or neglectful. It does not coerce or dominate. Neither does it spoil or overindulge. Love is ethical, accountable, responsible. Love does not lie to avoid conflict or to manipulate. Love does not lie to trick or deceive. Love is open and honest, but with a positive slant. Love lives with integrity that wills cooperation, though it is satisfying to love. Love is not about getting one's needs met, nor solely about meeting others' needs. Love is made of mutuality. Love is a generous giver, and in giving, it learns to receive. Love places another's interest on the same footing as our own. Love is not so much a feeling as an action, a continuing active choice to nurture another's well-being. There can be no love without justice and equality. Therefore, love requires that we subvert patriarchy, white supremacy, consumerism, ableism, anti-queerness, and all other forms of oppression. Those early Christians talked about love as being central to community. And bell hooks, 2,000 years later, essentially wrote the same thing. We have to be in community. That is what love calls us to do. Love, the kind of love just described in that passage that isn't coercive or domineering, that seeks the well-being of others and understands that the well-being of others is the well-being of self, that love liberates us and calls us to act in liberation with others. It recognizes mutuality and interdependence as a core component of human thriving. In All About Love Itself, Bell Hooks wrote this: although we all want to know love, we talk about the search for true love as though it is always and only a solitary quest. I'm disturbed by this weighty emphasis on self in our culture as a whole. While it is definitely true that inner contentedness and a sense of self-fulfillment can be there whether or not we commune in love with others, it is equally meaningful to give voice to that longing for communion. Life without communion and love with others would be less fulfilling, no matter the extent of one's self-love. We in the West, Bell Hooks goes on to say, have much to learn from cultures that value interdependency, that value working for collective good. Hooks says that we still need to talk about healthy interdependency in our relationships, our personal relationships, and our collective communal ones. And so much of what I've learned from Hooks over the years, so much of what actually drew me to Unitarian Universalism wasn't the idea of my own personal spiritual growth, although that is valuable. It was the core value of my inherent worthiness in relationship and interdependence with others. We are each valuable and inherently loving and loved, and that love becomes real in our relationships with one another. We become our full, whole selves in community. We become who we are in our relationships. And when we take care of ourselves, we take care of others, and we take care of others in healthy, mutually thriving ways, all of us are stronger and better. We live in systems that squash our thriving. We live in systems that say some people matter and some don't. We live in systems that are the antithesis of the kind of love that Paul talked about in 1 Corinthians and that Bell Hooks talks about in All About Love. And so we need the kind of love that calls us to liberating action. Because a liberating love is one that goes beyond just emotions, just beyond the shallow belief systems that love is somehow about how we feel, and how we feel should be comfortable and nice. Love calls us to wholeness for ourselves and all other living things. Love that puts our individual freedom as somehow the pinnacle misses the point. Because no matter how individually free I might be, when I live in systems where others are oppressed, my freedom has its limits. It is, in fact, a mirage. And so communal thriving, rather than my own individual freedom and security, is what love, liberating love, calls me to consider. Writer and spiritual leader Cole Arthur Riley, in her book, This Here Flesh, Spirituality, Liberation, and the Stories That Make Us, talks about liberation in this context. She says that in the pursuit of liberation, we do not need to pine after the power of our oppressor. We have to long for our own power to be fully realized. We don't want to steal and dominate someone else's land. We want agency and reclaiming and establishing our own spaces. We don't want to silence the voices of our enemies. We want to be able to safely center our own voices and be believed. Liberation recognizes that I won't get free by anyone else's bondage. She goes on to say, we must teach our children and our children's children what it means to be free, what it feels like to be whole, to exhale. And stories are our greatest teachers. What stories dominate our lives? What stories dominate our individual lives? What stories do you tell in your own family? And importantly, what stories do you not tell? What do you keep secret and hidden because of shame or fear or just sheer discomfort? We think we are leaving things behind when we do not talk about them, but they grow underground, and those actually becomes part of the stories that dominate who we are and that prevent us from liberating love. Wholeness means that we hold in tension all of who we are and who we have been, we as individuals, we as a communal people. What whole stories can we tell that show us the harm that we have done and the way to heal that harm? What stories might we tell differently if we can let ourselves trust in each other and be authentic? What practices will help us to move towards liberating love? When is your heart broken? When have you felt free? When have you felt loved? I don't know about you, but my heart is broken almost every day that I wake up. I'm sad and angry and fearful every day. And there have been times in my life when that heartbroken sadness has been all that I could see. There are times in my life when I sat in my car, crying alone at the state of the world and wishing to go to sleep forever. Perhaps you have felt that way. Perhaps you feel that way when grief is too much. When you look at your children and think, what kind of world are we leaving them? Are we leaving them a world at all? And I will tell you, in those moments when I was sitting in my car crying alone, what saved me wasn't my own sense of self-love, wasn't my own sense of inherent worthiness. What saved me was reaching out to other people, being reminded that I am not alone, that I and you and we are not inherently broken, no matter how broken our hearts are. The times I have felt most free, I've said this already, are the times when I have been able to show up as my whole self. In the days and weeks and months following that sad, heartbroken time where I spent way too much time alone in my car and finally began to reconnect in community to others, I joined a spiritual circle at my church, an opportunity to engage with others in small group ministry. And the very first day of that circle, which I joined thinking it was an open invitation, you could come and go as you needed, and I thought, I'm just going to go one time because I don't have time for this, and I don't feel secure enough to be vulnerable the way I think they're going to ask me to be vulnerable. And I showed up in a circle with other people who held each other in open, honest love with no judgment, who laid down some of their burdens, who talked about how much they long for a world where we are all free. And I was able to share the things that broke my heart. And I cried with others for the first time in years. and people held my hand. And I had never felt so free in my living memory as I did in that moment of being wholly with others. It's also when I felt loved there in community. I was present for the birth of my now almost 16-year-old nephew. It's a holy moment for me being present at his birth. And that moment of connection to that sweet little baby who's now a young man, to his mother, my sister, to the rest of my family, those long gone. That is a sustaining moment for me that I return to of love. It wasn't just about I love this baby. It was about I am connected beyond myself to others. And what kind of world, because I am loving, will I leave for this little baby? Who are the babies in your life, the literal children, the metaphorical ones that call you into yourself to be whole so that you can take action that lovingly creates a world where everybody thrives? I hope, my dear people, whether you are Theo's age or my age, or I'm trying to think, I know Bob's Dake is like 96. I don't care how old you are, no matter your age, we all have time still to act with liberating love. So I want you to turn to your pieces of paper once again, where you reflected on your own heartbroken, free, loving interactions. Was it in community with others, whether in a large community like this, in a one-on-one relationship, that your heart was both broken and made whole? My guess is it might be. That's who we are as people. What were the actions that any of those moments called you to do when you experienced them? What are the actions that Liberating Love is calling you to take today? The world still breaks my heart. Tens of thousands of people are dying in Gaza. Thousands of refugees are fleeing Venezuela. Tens of thousands of people are dying in Burkina Faso. The war in Ukraine rages on. The global climate crisis, well, that rages on as well. Gun violence in America is so overwhelmingly ubiquitous we don't even blink. There's a lot that can break our hearts, my dear ones, so much. Look around this room, though. Look around at the people here. Look in your heart at the cloud of witnesses you carry with you always. Both your ancestors, the people living with you right now, your neighbors, who you mostly just wave to maybe. Look around this room, look around the world. There are always people who are with you in the work. In the midst of the heartbreak, you are never alone. So I want you on your paper to think about one liberating, loving action you can take this week, and it does not have to be big. That's the point I actually need to make. Liberating Love calls us to act here, now, in our own circles. And maybe that means that you will actually write a letter to your congresspeople demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Maybe that means you'll show up at the Urbana City Council meeting that is happening tomorrow, I just found out about, and ask them to demand a ceasefire. Maybe, though, it means that you'll show up on Tuesday and volunteer at Daily Bread like you do each week. Maybe it means you'll answer the call for volunteers for RE folks this coming week here in this church. Maybe it means you'll volunteer at the Humane Society or shovel a neighbor's sidewalk, assuming the snow gets deep enough to need shoveling. What one loving action can you take this week? It is in your hands to do. As you think about that action, I invite you to also think about who you will take that action with. With whom are you in loving, accountable relationship that you can say, I'm going to do this. Will you do it with me? Or will you ask me how it went? And that person can say, of course, I'm here with you. What actions can you take? Who is with you in it? And one final thing I want you to reflect on and consider is how will you nurture your own spirit so that when the heartbreak breaks in on you, you feel nurtured enough to face it? What are the spiritual practices that can sustain you? What are you already doing to feed your soul so that you can show up lovingly for others? Do you pray or meditate? Do you write in a journal? Go to a support group? Maybe you walk. Maybe you sing. Maybe you're sitting there saying, I don't do any of that. And I invite you to think about what you can commit to for loving action for the world and loving action for yourself, the spiritual practices that are part of that mutuality. You are not in it alone. We are all in this together, and all in this together means we also must nurture our spirits. Find the practices that will root your soul to what it most needs, how it can be most whole, so that you can show up for yourself and for others in loving liberation. That, I believe, is what we are called to do. May it be so. And as a final prayer, my dear people, we will sing hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. We'll build a land where everyone is free. Please rise in body or spirit.
We'll build a land where and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may men create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come, build the land, my people receive. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
I want to share with you in closing these words from UU Minister Lori Stevens. When we take actions that are aligned with love and justice, we remember who and what we truly are, facets of the holy oneness. Let us release this flame today and carry with us the call of love that seeks the holy oneness and liberation for us all. And we'll say together our chalice closing words from Elizabeth Sally Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth.